Right-wing reject, Representative Paul Gosar, someone who's been rejected by several members of his own family, has faced censure today. The House has voted to censure him over his posting of an anime video that was edited to make it appear as though he was harming members of Congress, specifically lawmakers like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, before we get to details about that, I think that AOC's speech on the House floor about this issue was powerful, was important. So we're gonna share a portion of it with you. Let's take a quick look at that.
Not just the Republican leader, but I have seen other members of this party advance the argument, including Representative Gosar himself, the illusion that this was just a joke. That what we say and what we do does not matter so long as we claim a lack of meaning. Now, this nihilism runs deep, and it conveys and betrays a certain contempt for the meaning and importance of our work here. That what we do, so long as we claim that it is a joke, doesn't matter. And I am here to rise to say that it does. And as leaders in this country, when we incite violence with depictions against our colleagues, that trickles down into violence in this country.
I mean, she's right about that. And we've seen how that has played out, right? I mean, we've seen how the rhetoric coming from the right wing has emboldened the worst elements of this country to take to the streets, to run counter protesters over in Charlottesville, Virginia, to chant things like the Jews will not replace us. I mean, I know that this country has grappled with racism and xenophobia and all of that for a long time, but it was largely in the shadows for a while. And then Trump comes in and just openly supports hatred. Openly, through his rhetoric, divides the country further and gives people emboldens people, enables them to just come out into the open and say things that they've been thinking for a long time. You have members of Congress emboldened by this. Think about any other work environment. Think about any other work environment. If you put out a video like that in regard to one of your colleagues or coworkers, would that be acceptable? There'd be disciplinary action immediately. So I think that in this case, it's the right thing to censure. I always have a hard time.
Censure, yeah.
Exactly, to do that. But now, of course, the right wing is threatening to strip Democratic lawmakers from their committee assignments once they have control of the House in retaliation. I have no doubt that they'll do that.
Yeah, maybe they will. I mean, why wouldn't they? They are, like AOC's point about the nihilism, the turning against any idea that there's a significance to what government is supposed to be, the obligation it's supposed to have to its constituents, that elected officials should be in literally any way better than an average American in terms of feeling some sort of obligation. She's totally right. Look who is popular on the right. The Matt Gaetzes, the Madison Cawthorns, the Lauren Boeberts, the Marjorie Greens. These are just trolls, that's all they are. Maybe they're trolls that go on Fox News, maybe 2 years ago they were trolls making Facebook videos, but that's all it is. They're not there because they've better articulated the economic crises facing conservative Americans, or they have a better understanding of the solutions, they advocate for those values. But no, they say awful things, they believe and spread conspiracy theories, and especially they give the base what it wants, which is depictions and threats of violence against the libs that they hate. So whether it's Marjorie Greene posing next to photos of Ilhan Omar with an AR-15, or her posting on Facebook that Nancy Pelosi should be shot in the head, or the AOC thing, we keep coming back to this because they know their base and their base wants blood. They at the very least want promises that it's coming. Millions of Americans didn't suddenly start following QAnon, which ends with the Great Storm where Trump rounds up everyone everyone they hate, whether it's Chuck Schumer or Tom Hanks, that executes them all. They didn't just happen across that. They want violence against the people they hate. And these are grifters, trolls. That's the product that they're selling millions of conservative Americans.
Absolutely. And Paul Gosar, by the way, shows absolutely no remorse. And he engages in the same game that we've seen other right-wingers engage in, which is put out a threat and then pretend like, oh, it was just a joke. Why are you taking it so seriously? You're so crazy. Like that kind of gaslighting, right? When we've seen violence play out by the right wing in this country, certainly during the Trump administration and even after the Trump administration. I mean, a US lawmaker condoning violence is not cute, it's not funny, and why don't you actually do something to better the lives of your constituents? Of course they don't want to do that. Anyway, here's Paul Gosar on the House floor just doubling down on his garbage.
No matter how much the left tries to quiet me, I will continue to speak out against amnesty for illegal aliens, defend the rule of law, and advance the American First agenda. If I must join
Gentleman's recognized, 30 seconds.
If I must join Alexander Hamilton, the first person attempted to be censored by this House, so be it. It is done.
Yeah, you
compared himself to Alexander Hamilton and then claims that he's being censored.
Yeah.
Look, there are consequences for speech when you're threatening people you work with. It happens in other settings.
Yeah.
You know, these people are not like above it. Like there shouldn't be a double standard just because you happen to be a US lawmaker.
Yeah, we don't have a lower standard for people with more power. Well, we do, honestly, when it comes to cops. We've sort of been beaten into submission as a people, but we shouldn't have that lower standard. And this is like, I know a lot of people will say, hey, we started following you in the news like during the pandemic or maybe during 2016. So maybe like people maybe they're from outside of the US, so they've only been following the news for a few years. This is not the way it was. You didn't have politicians like Donald Trump, not for like at least a few decades at the very least. You didn't have Tucker Carlson just openly taking talking points from 4chan and Alex Jones and just saying them. Glenn Beck tried, he was fired from Fox. O'Reilly would couch it a little bit. It was not nearly this open in media and on their politician side. You would not casually joke about bringing guns to DC. It has become incredibly normalized. Lots has been normalized over the past few years, but perhaps nothing so dangerous as the casual joking about violence.
Yeah, and the fact that you have Kevin McCarthy, House Minority Leader, getting together with Republican lawmakers and saying we need to be unified in rejecting this, attempt to hold one of our own accountable. It's just it tells you everything you need to know about the right wing, right? If they feel threatened, if there's a Kathy Griffin photo that they dislike, well then it is the biggest offense. Her entire life needs to be destroyed. But if one of their own threatens a Democratic lawmaker, we need to be unified in our opposition to any consequences.
Yeah.
And look, one of our members wrote in and asked if there were any Republicans who supported consequences for Gosar. The only two that I heard of were Representative Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. But of course, it's the usual people.
They're freed up too.
Everyone else is terrified of Trump's base.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.